Welcome to Bridge to Practice, live with the author. I'm Amanda Goodwin, and I'm one of the co-editors of Reading Research Quarterly. We're here with Kyle Levesque, who's one of our fantastic authors, and he has a wonderful article out in Reading Research Quarterly. Welcome, Kyle.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Well, Kyle, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got interested in this research?
Yeah, of course. Well, like you said, my name is Kyle Levesque, and I'm currently a postdoctoral fellow in the Department of Psychology and Neuroscience at Dalhousie University. Dalhousie University is up in Halifax, Nova Scotia, in Canada, and I'm here working in the Language and Literacy Lab.
Well, tell us a little bit about your study that is published in Reading Research Quarterly.
Yeah, of course. This is the study called Inferring Meaning from Meaningful Parts, the Contribution of Morphological Skills to the Development of Children's Reading Comprehension. This is a paper.
Wow, that is quite the title. So I'm going to be interested to hear what it's about and what that actually means.
Yeah, I authored this with Michael Kiefer and Len Deacon, and something that we were working on for quite a number of years as part of a larger project, part of my dissertation research, actually. And, you know, the broader question behind this research has always been, how does morphology, or this awareness of roots and suffixes, how does that relate to reading comprehension? So that's sort of the underlying research question that all of this work involves.
So if we had to think about it, morphology is roots and affixes, right? Roots and suffixes and prefixes. Yeah. So basically it's thinking about, like, how does knowing fear and full, putting them together into fearful, contribute to reading comprehension?
That's right. And I mean, morphological awareness is often this, you know, sometimes vaguely defined linguistic construct, but it really is, you know, that knowledge and that awareness that grows from very early on about the roots and the meaningful units of our language. And, you know, there's a lot of growing research showing that it does connect to literacy skills like word reading and reading comprehension.
Oh, very cool. Well, tell us a little bit about what your study found.
In this particular study, we were really interested in identifying more precisely the morphological skills that contribute to reading comprehension development. And what we're looking at is we looked at morphological awareness, which is a common construct in the literature, but also another morphological skill, which we called morphological analysis. And morphological analysis is really, it's applying that knowledge of the roots and the suffixes and the affixes in order to understand morphologically complex words, these multi-morphemic words that are quite difficult for children. And so we wanted to know how these two skills, whether they are separate or whether they, which one contributes more or less to reading comprehension over time. So that was the goal of this particular study. And what we're finding is that in this study of about 200 children that we followed from grade 3 to grade 4, we found that morphological analysis, so this skill about how to derive meaning from complex words, that was the driving skill that was more predictive of gains in children's reading comprehension over that 1 year period.
And so tell us, what does this mean to me? If I was a teacher, how do I apply your findings in my classroom?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. For starters, I would say that we're kind of seeing this multi-dimensional element of morphology. So it is important to be aware and to have knowledge of the different word parts and roots and affixes, but it's also important to know how to apply those strategies to break up words and use the roots and the affixes in order to derive meaning from a word that you might not know. And that's particularly important for children in the mid and late elementary grades, because I think something that maybe parents and teachers, you know, other researchers might not, or they may be surprised to know how actually common these multi-morphemic words are in text. So there's a large proportion of the words that children are encountering are morphologically complex. So these words are longer, they're more infrequent, they're more likely to be unfamiliar, and they're more likely to pose a problem for reading comprehension. So children really need to know the knowledge and the skills in order to tackle those words for them to have good reading comprehension.
So what do you say to parents? What do parents take away from your research?
That's another good question, because it's really one kind of unknown is, what do parents know about morphology? And I don't think we know much about what parents know. What do they know about roots and affixes, and how important it is for children in their reading and reading comprehension? So I think that's a really important topic to know more about what their actual just basic knowledge of this area is. And I think it is a little bit of the same thing with teachers, is that they may touch on morphology more or less, and they might not even be aware that they are, but it's just about what words share the same parts, and in their discussions with their child. But it's kind of a black box right now, I find, and we really don't know what parents know and what they do in terms of teaching children about word parts and morphemes.
Same kind of thing when they're reading books to their kids. And just like in the classroom, it seems like, focusing on some of these words and helping kids break these words apart into their units of meaning could be something that could be cool to try. I know I'm going to try it with my daughter tonight.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I think for the most part is that there's a lot of research that's being done in this area, and the translation to curriculum and to the broader population is really the important part to be doing right now. So that, like I said, some teachers know a lot about it and some teachers don't. So it's about making that more explicit and making that instruction more applicable to across teachers and across provinces and states.
Cool. And that kind of links to our next question. What would you tell principals or policymakers based off of the results of your study?
Well, again, I think it's very important for people to know the clear link in the literature that we're seeing between knowing about morphemes and being able to apply morphemes to understand words, and how that has a very direct connection to their reading comprehension. So having that knowledge is very important. And in terms of influencing policy, I think that right now, in our province at least, morphemes and word parts are not mentioned very much. It's not very explicit to teachers. So there needs to be a lot more work on the policy end to make the strategies and the very specific elements of instruction much clearer. So I think bringing just awareness to people in the policy making positions, I think that's a very important first step. And I think there's a lot of work left to do in that area for sure.
I agree, absolutely. So what's next? What do we need to do research-wise or practice-wise in terms of better understanding this?
And in terms of next steps, what I've been kind of thinking about more is, if you take, for instance, the study that I was just talking about, where we're kind of trying to identify the precise morphological skills. Now that we've done that empirically, we need to kind of take a look at that from an intervention sort of approach. We've identified the skills. How do we then, what are the best ways to teach those precise skills now? So a lot of, I think, important and interesting work to be done in the intervention type world. And, for myself personally, I'm also very interested in the development type work. So how do these skills look like over broader age ranges? Because I think that it is skills that sort of have different peaks at different points in time. If you take, for instance, a word that you would need to analyze based on its word parts in grade 3 is not the same type of word that you're going to be analyzing in grade 6. So, depending more or less what's the need of this skill at different points in time is really an important.
Well, Kyle, this has been fascinating. Things that I'm taking away from this is really that emphasis on morphology is important, so knowing about prefixes and suffixes and roots and all of that is important. But it sounds like you're telling me that its application is even more important. And so we need to do more work in helping our kids apply those skills to text and to language, probably.
Yeah, it's exactly the perfect way to put it. I really see this morphological analysis skill as the acting agent of morphological awareness. So it's sort of the actionable part of that skill. And it's something that, I think that the key part of morphological analysis is that it is a malleable, it's a teachable skill that can be applied to the classroom.
Well, thanks. You've really pushed our thinking in such important ways. So I really appreciate you being here with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.